All right, well, we're jumping into Champ Select here for the first game of the day. It's going to be Nidalee banned away from Peanut, as well as the Twisted Fate from Xie, and then the Ornn removed from Lanxing's pool. And on the other side, we're going to see the Zoe Respect banned here from LGD, as well as Caitlyn.
Yeah, surprising to me that the Volibear hasn't been taken away yet. I would expect that to be LGD's last ban because there's been a pick that XX has loved. We also know it is a flex, but no. Going to ban out the Kalista instead. And LNG is still one of the teams that uses it as a flex.
Yeah, I will say, like, Kalista is... it's been a very strong pick for Light specifically, so I can understand the ban, but it does mean this Volibear goes through. LGD immediately get themselves Ezreal for Kramer, and they grab that set that we talk about every single time. It is that flex pick that can go pretty much anywhere on the map.
It's kind of funny because Kramer was one of the first AD carries to bring out the Ashe, but in recent series, as you know, me and you saw on Monday, that we've seen LGD and Kramer really prefer getting him on this Ezreal, and obviously he's an insane Ezreal player. I mean, even in their last series against BLG, hitting some insane Qs and ultimates.
It's interesting as well to see the presence of Ezreal seems to have spiked again more recently, because we saw Yuumi come out of the meta. Quite a few teams then immediately stopped playing Ezreal for a little while. But he snuck back on through, and we are starting to see it, especially people like Kramer playing him, and obviously Jackie Love. But then we have Aphelios and this Galio that we talked about on the other side here for LNG.
Yeah, and this was what we talked about, right? Contested picks in the Twisted Fate and the Galio. LNG, of course, ban out the Twisted Fate, get the Galio themselves. So XX is going to be able to play a bit more aggressive. And I think Galio has definitely been one of Maple's standout champions. And we see LNG going back to this style, which is setting up Light to be a big carry in the late game.
Yeah, and you can see LGD on the other side setting up a style of, like, Mark is not going to be playing bot lane. He's going to be around the map. Kramer, you're on your own, but you're on Ezreal, so you're going to be safe to just farm away. Now, towards the bans, we see Camille banned away here by LGD. It's going to be answered with a Wukong from Flange.
And I'm kind of surprised that LNG aren't banning out mid laners, because I think there's just two very obvious mid laners that Xie would love to get his hands on, and that is either A, the Syndra, or B, the Sylas. I think both of them are fine. Both can work in the comp quite well, and you know, we've seen especially the Sylas lately is something Xie loves going towards. He's played it in this matchup, being able to steal away the ult from that Galio, but both teams focusing on top side.
And a Lux ban as well coming through, which is obviously a support that we've been seeing coming in recently. Iwandi especially has been really loving this pick. We saw it in both games against Rogue Warriors.
Yeah, and LNG, I wonder if they're just going to ban out another top laner. Obviously, the Renekton is still open. We've seen LGD pick that champion up on 4 so many times. They're just so happy to get Lanxing, you know, one of his favorite champions, is fine in the laning phase, obviously can win a lot of matchups. But that would also show a potential set flex, despite the fact that we don't really see it in the top lane much anymore.
So the Sylas you talked about was banned away. And Xie, despite Syndra being available, is just going to go for this Azir. So a bit of a scaling option in that mid lane. Iwandi insta-lock on the Janna.
And for any of you who don't know, like, this is his main champion. He still spams it in solo queue. It's most played by far. I think sitting up at like a 70% win rate in Korean solo queue. So this one's going to be interesting.
It certainly is. And you know what? When you've got a hyper carry at Aphelios as well, Janna's going to do well to buff him up and make him exceptional.
The funny thing, though, is you're facing an Ezreal Nazir. Like, you just pick Janna into a comp that is already saying, hey, we want to play to range. We just want to poke you down. But I think
like
it's comfort.
We should add context to what Janna offers in competitive as well, because it's obviously different to what you'll see in solo queue, and that's that Janna is like the ultimate disengage support. She wants to stay away as much as possible and protect the AD carry when, as you rightly say, LGD, they're kind of okay with staying away.
Yeah, and I mean, LNG's comp, right? They've built this more, I don't necessarily want to say poke, but right, it wants the kite back. It's setting up for the Aphelios. You have a lot of peel. Janna in there for the peel. The Galio's going to play this more zoning defensive type of Galio. The Volibear as well, and just set up Light to be this massive carry in the late game. But LGD are completely fine with that. They're just fine with Kramer throwing out these Mystic shots, Xie abusing with the soldiers. You have this set who can play as a disengage role with the ultimate, or even, you know, get in on the backline as well. You're going to have Tempered Fates coming out, so it should be pretty easy to get on top of the Aphelios.
And the crazy thing as well is, like, this style of composition that LNG have drafted here plays perfectly into how LGD play this game. They want to play slow. They want to stay at range, wait for the perfect opportunity, then go in with the Renekton, with the set, and force that massive fight that wins them the game. But LNG have kind of drafted into that exact same style.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I favor what LGD have picked up. Even the Emperor's Divide is going to be so massive. I don't know how I mean, your only options of getting onto LGD is Volibear running forward or Galio running forward, right? There's no easy way of getting on top of them. And you can say, hey, well, they have the Jace. They want to play from a distance, but then you're not setting up your Aphelios to succeed.
We'll have to see if they can get Line to succeed on that Aphelios. LNG taking on LGD here, with LNG definitely the underdogs in this series and LGD fighting for seeding. We're about ready to jump onto Summoner's Rift though, but before we do, we've got some gyos from the fans.
LGD gyro.
We only have LGD gyos though. LNG no gyos. Feels bad, man.
I mean, they are one of your favorite teams. You can feel free to gyro right now.
Not true. You keep on telling people this. Hey, my faith in LNG is not the sole reason that they win games. I believe that the players win on them by themselves as well.
You know, when we came into today's series, like, man, they've looked so good recently. They just came off a win.
They did come off of a win. I wasn't wrong. They took a game off of JDG.
I mean, you sound like you support them to me, but you know, talking about supporting them and kind of how they want to play out this game, it's going to be a bit different because obviously, again, we do have this channel on the Rift. Still, you would expect them to want to play around topside for the fact that they draft this Jace, especially Jace into Renekton, because Renekton typically wants to be able to find the advantage, especially at level 6, because, you know, you have the Dominus. Jace doesn't really have an ultimate. Renekton's going to do extremely well in the 2v2, so I'd like to see XX play around topside early and set Flandre up for some success.
So we're seeing a full poke build come out here from I1D as well, with the Comet coming in. Not seeing things like this Guardian build that we've seen on the looks that's much more defensive. I1D wanting to get the poke down, has that new buffed up Spell Thieves as well.
And that would obviously signal a difference of what I just said, that they'd want to play more around the bot side, facilitate them to start taking turret plates. And, you know, we know Bard is not a very strong laner, right? Bard only has one combat ability in his Q. You don't have very long range, so going to see LNG looking for the spot side dominance. Also like going towards the lethal tempo, which has been a lot more common ever since the nerf, but also gives you a lot more control of the wave and lane.
Obviously referring to the Conqueror nerf there as well, for just for clarity. Since it got put up to 12 stacks, we've seen a lot of Aphelios going for more of the attack speed, and it has meant as well that the level, the 2-item spike for Aphelios is more significant as well. Once you get the Hurricane with lethal tempo, can be devastating around those fights for Dragon and Rift Herald.
Yep, and we're seeing both junglers just full clear up to top side, which is nice because we see Flandre now already has a ward, so going to spot out if Peanut does look for any early shenanigans.
So you can see here on the screen what this says is what I was talking about earlier, where if LGD wins, they can place anywhere from 4th to 6th, but they guarantee top 6. If they lose this series, they could go all the way from 5th to 8th place. We'll have to see how that one's going to go down, but certainly a decent amount of pressure on LGD in this series.
It opens up an interesting conversation, especially if we're thinking about 5th through 8th, because, like, do you really want to play? Is it better to be 5th and potentially play FPX or RNG as compared to, let's say, a team like WE, you know? So I think that 5th spot's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, trying to figure out, I mean, obviously top 4 is ideal, but then between 5th and 6th, like, which position do you actually want in terms of the seeding, in terms of your first round opponent? There's a lot of, I mean, that conversation becomes very complex towards the end of the split.
Yeah, I mean, especially with RNG just 2-0ing top esports, right? It's like, do you want to face RNG? Though, obviously, even the order of those positions is up in the air since all the teams are, you know, about tied right now. Obviously, RNG can finish 9th on 9 wins as well, so.
That's the thing, like, trying to predict your position in the bracket based on your opponents and based on, like, with the way that 7th and 8th is right now, I have no idea who's going to finish in what position. It's so difficult to predict how this one's going to go out, especially with recently the results have been so crazy as well, even just outside of how close these teams are in level right now. It's also just incredibly difficult to predict the results that are happening.
That's just talking about, like, the 4 teams, LGD, WE, FPX, and RNG in isolation. That's not even adding in the fact that Suning and V5 technically are in that conversation as well. They can still lose their remaining series.
And it's still, like, crazy in a good way to me that Suning have made it to top 4 this split. I think a lot of people didn't expect them to have this level of performance. It's great to see them up there, but their position is not guaranteed. They still have 2 series remaining, and teams like LGD are the guys that want them to lose a couple of those series, that want to try and knock them out of that top 4 position.
Yep, they definitely are. Moving back to the game, we do see LNG getting some vision around the mid lane, seeing Iwandi hover over. But, I mean, we expected this coming into today's game, right? We expected slower-paced League of Legends. That's the way both teams like to play. Even both comps, in a sense, signaling they want this, right? We see an Enchanter support coming out with an Aphelios in the bot lane. Even Volibear and Sett being much more of team fight-oriented junglers.
So, if we're expecting a bit of a slower game here, Lyric, what I want to ask you is, at what point do you anticipate things start to pick up? Because obviously we've got a Cloud Drake to start things off, which means the Soul will likely be a more impactful Soul. Like, which team do you expect to be putting their front foot forward and going for things like the early Dragons in the Heavens?
I was actually just going to say expect it to be LNG for the fact that they will have pressure in bot lane, as we see, right? The Aphelios and Janna keep being able to push out. Obviously, Maple should be able to follow up easily with the ultimate. The thing that makes it a bit of a question mark now is Flandre TP'd back to lane. Longxing held on to his TP, so if there is some kind of fight that erupts around Dragon, LGD can either dissuade that or come in with a numbers advantage, but at least looking at the factors, I think LNG, as we see now on our screens, are going to be the one to start stacking these up early on.
Yeah, they had the push in the bot lane, and Peanut, as you can see on your minimap, is going to be over towards the top side right now. But I mean, you mentioned the TP difference in that top lane, and I feel like that is such a good representation stylistically of these two top laners as well. Flandre definitely a guy that wants to win lane, wants to force his advantages in that top side, whereas Longxing generally will be playing towards the team. Whether he likes it or not, that is what his teams always demand of him.
Yeah, and honestly, at this point, I would expect Longxing just kind of conditioned to even think it's the best style of League of Legends. Like, hey guys, like, I don't care about... And gonna interrupt myself. It's kind of weird to say that a lot of top laners I've met who do like playing that weak side, like playing, you know, the tanks supporting bot lane. They are the ones who typically vouch for that themselves. They are the ones who are usually the driving voice saying, hey guys, like, I think bot lane's strongest right now. I think these picks are insane. Let's set up for the bot.
I think you have to be that style of player to play that style of gameplay, because if not, like, if you're a carry top laner and you're forced into these defensive picks, you're forced into losing lanes, you're going to lose your mind. Like, because top lane is such a brutal lane to play from behind as well. It's so difficult, especially when you're getting dived, when there's so much jungle pressure. You can't step up to the wave. You can't even get XP. Like, you have to be... You either have to really vouch for that style of gameplay or be some kind of sadist to one.
It goes back to something I heard Bwippo say in an interview that, like, you can't always just accept, you know, like, getting destroyed if you are playing, like, a weak side matchup you need to play around bot, right? Because the enemy top lane is going to be able to, like, freeze your wave on their side of the lane, something like this. You're going to need to put yourself in positions where you can contest, and that's obviously a skill in its own right, as you're saying.
So we're not going to see, I believe, a bit of a reset here. Mark going to be recalling. We'll see the similar thing from Light and Iwandi. But I think it might be denied. Nice little ward there coming out from LGD that spots out the LNG players. It means they can stop the recall. And I believe that recall was to try and move up towards Herald, try and maybe go for a swap from the side of LNG, try and force that objective.
It's strange because even though I think they're the team that does want to start getting ahead, I actually don't expect them to, just for the fact that, again, you did draft this Janna Aphelios. You want to be taking these plates. You want to really accelerate the Aphelios. So I kind of expect them to just stay around the bottom side.
We'll have to see. Peanut is going to be moving on up. Maple spotted him out, but he'll have vision control of the area. As XX going to go towards this blue buff. And Peanut is just going to start this Herald up. So I'm curious now, because obviously Mark is on Bard, so he can roam up here, no worries whatsoever. Kramer's going to be completely safe at the bottom side. But you can see Iwandi moving over as well.
Yeah, and I think a massive thing is that we actually don't have any Tempered Fate yet, so Bard not really going to be massively impactful, though Longxing does have push.
Longxing has push, and he's already moving down. Dominus available for him. I don't know if LNG can take this fight. Herald's already gone. Peanut will grab that for himself. As Shie taunted up, should be finished off, but flashes into the magical journey. Beautifully done. It's daylight robbery here from LGD.
Yeah, really clean, and overall we have one flash coming out for one flash, of course. I don't think either one's that impactful. Obviously, Azir has a lot of mobility for himself. XX also going to have that ultimate that's going to be able to get him in and out of fights. But LGD picking up the Rift Herald, so now it's going to be a question of where do they want to open up the map. I do always argue for mid lane in general, but especially in this game, actually, for the reason that we don't have either side lane that's really going to be able to take plates in their isolated matchups. I feel like it is better to just look for this time where you could have Mark roam to the mid lane, you know, maybe have Longxing hover down as well, and just start breaking down mid lane turret.
You can see the players here have a very similar mindset as well to you, Lyric, in that you could see Lights just grabbed himself a very late cull because he knows that this is going to be an extended laning phase. He knows these towers aren't going down anytime soon. Especially, that's one thing that Janna offers as well, is you can deny those plays with the shield. You can shield the towers and keep them protected.
Yep. And, oh, we actually see...
Tempered Fates onto Iwandi here. Should be followed up with a stun, but the flash is there. Showstopper as well. Means that Iwandi's safe. Monsoon keeps him alive. And now in comes the mid laner. Nice little defense here from LNG.
Yeah, and overall, I think it's a bit of a strange play coming out from LGD in general, right? They thought that they'd be able to burst out Iwandi, but... I mean, right now, Kramer not really having any damage. Even Peanut, I mean, only sitting on his jungle item, ults him towards his team. Maple on the Galio, easily able to follow up. But this also does go back to what we've historically seen of LGD this split is, despite the fact that I think it might make more sense to drop Herald mid, they have been about setting up Kramer in the bot lane.
They really have. And, you know, especially when Kramer's on something like the Ezreal, like, getting him to 2 items quicker than you should be expecting is a huge boon for them, and could set them up to contest for future Dragons as well, because we do have an Infernal Drake spawning in 10 seconds time here. And LGD would love to contest for that. With the Herald, they could maybe set up some pressure in one lane to then rotate to the Dragon.
It will be interesting because we see Flandre just heading straight towards the Dragon himself. Maple does have TP, but Maple doesn't have ultimate, which I feel like will be very impactful. Longshing's going to go up top first, get some pressure. Going to potentially force Flandre to lose some waves, so LNG definitely want to start this right now.
Interesting ward placement there from XX as well, just making sure that there's no wards on the wall outside of Dragon to spot it. Peanut moves in, and with XX stood there, just starts onto the ward, but he regrets it a little bit here. A lot of damage coming on through. Haymaker might have been too late on that one, and XX grabs the kill in the end. So LNG just completely bully Peanut out.
Yeah, and the confidence from XX comes from the fact that, hey, Flandre snuck in there, right? Flandre was behind him the whole time. LGD didn't even know, so going to be able to pick themselves up a second Dragon, and even Light being able to get more plates in the bottom lane. So we do see LNG able to accelerate the game like we talked about.
And we're going to see which soul will have this game as well. It's either going to be Ocean or Mountain, so either way it's defensive, it's going to be that Mountain soul.
You know, it just feels so weird saying accelerate the game when we're talking about an Aphelios, a Janna, a Volibear.
Yeah, we're talking about accelerating from 50 minutes to 40 minutes here. Flandre starts the fight with Longshing. Longshing has a bit of damage, but he's taunted in. Maple here to finish the kill off. And this TP might have been a bad decision coming out from Xie. He's arrived too late to the play. Nice little Emperor's Divide, but 2v1, there's not a lot you can do.
You know, we came into this saying, yeah, LGD are just kind of a better version of LNG. And LNG so far are showing us the exact opposite. Still, LGD answering in the mid lane, getting a bit of plate gold onto Peanut and Mark.
XX starting the fight here in the mid lane onto Peanut. In comes Maple as well. Peanut, I don't know about some of these decisions. Flash comes out, Peanut's going to go down. Tempered Fate is too late. Now Mark taking a tower shot as well as he zips away, and Iwandi wants to chase him down. Janna obviously has a lot of movement speed, but you can't catch the bar.
You know, Munchmos, I can feel your faith today. You came in hyped on LNG. We see that in the gameplay. They're doing good. And once again, as always, I'll just point it out for people who aren't, you know, regular viewers that LNG strength correlates with Munchables' amount of faith. So we can see Munchables coming in strong today.
My faith in LNG winning this series is about maybe 1 out of 10.
Look at this
game! But maybe
game.
that's enough, because that's more faith than I've had for basically the rest of this split.
I mean, 3K gold lead now. We see Maple is massive. We've seen so many times in the LPL where we talk about, okay, well, you know, this Galio not going to put out a lot of damage. And almost every time we say that, the Galio massively gets ahead, is going to have an item advantage over the Azir. I mean, he has it right now, actually. So going to do so much more in these early skirmishes. Only have to wait 3 minutes for that Dragon to come back up. And even the pressure there from top lane, right? We could see LNG actually playing for both neutrals. They actually could just go for that Rift Herald.
And the crazy thing as well is that we've got a CS lead for the Galio as well. And granted, it's not a huge CS lead, obviously, but the fact that Galio is even with Azir while he's roaming around the map, while Maple's been making plays in other lanes, like, this is Azir. Azir's biggest strength is getting this massive CS lead in the laning phase, controlling that lane. Now we've got yet another 1v1 here. Lunching taken very low to start the fight off. Dominus used, and he just slices and dices away. True Shot Barrage flying across the map, but it's not going to connect here. Peanut's off to the side. You can see Mark moving up as well. Maybe they try to extend this play. The recall's coming through from FLICKR. I think it's going to be a tough.
Yeah, nice respect coming out from FLICKR. Obviously did well in the initial trade as well. Obviously has the item advantage, so nice to see from him. LNG going to pick up a turret on the bottom half of the map, so only increasing that gold lead. And the thing is, though, that LGD already have Bard on top side, so you'd expect them to be able to look for that Herald now, but Iwandi's already heading up. Huh, and actually, Mark just recalls.
Yeah, we're going to see just resets here. Herald on the map, 2 minutes until the next Drake. LNG setting up for this Herald for themselves. Obviously, it was Peanut that grabbed that last Herald. If LNG can get this, they can really start to snowball.
We need to remember, though, that obviously LGD have the ultimate feels bad man with Bard on the Rift, so actually there's a high potential that this Rift Herald won't do anything, but
that's true.
Even making sure that LGD themselves don't get it, I feel like is good enough for LNG at this point in the game, because hey, even if you just save this up for, you know, a minute and a half, drop it down when Dragon spawns, and can even force out that Tempered Fate at that time, that feels like a massive win for LNG.
It really does. So 4-0 right now. 2 Drakes, they got themselves a Herald, they've got themselves a 3,000 gold lead. This is looking pretty good for LNG. Lyric.
You know, I feel like we're in store for a extremely hyped team fight that is going to come up. 1 minute and 8 seconds.
The thing is, right, even with LNG ahead, even with like compositional advantages and whatnot, I still don't know if I believe here. Kramer gets taunted up. Maple's completely alone though. There's no TPs available on his team, and he's just going to get taken down.
In Munchables, that was a massive dive. Huge play coming out from Peanut, and we get a kill.
I don't know if it was that big of a dive. It was cool. They got a kill. That part was correct.
That was their first kill.
They did get themselves a kill.
We celebrate success here in the LPL, so, you know, I'm happy.
You know what? I'm here to celebrate with you. Let's go. They pulled off a dive.
First kill onto Kramer, exactly. So already setting up for this massive Ezreal snowball.
Look at Kramer's items right now. He's finished stacking his Muramana before he's finished his Frozen Gauntlet. That's... Oh, Iceborne Gauntlet, sorry. That's kind of crazy. I don't know if I've ever seen that in professional.
Yeah, it's been...
Because he got his Boots of Lucidity before going for a Sheen.
So, it's quite interesting coming out from Kramer. And, you know, let's preface again that the longer this game goes,
So it turns out he had a ton of gold. He just went and immediately bought the full Iceborne Gauntlet. Dragon starting anyway. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's okay. Actually, Peanut and Mark are posturing for a fight. Peanut looking for the steal potentially.
Come on then, LGD. Let's see it. Let's see what you got up your sleeves. Dragon is going to be taken by LNG. That's their third as Peanut just gets absolutely annihilated. Langshing jumping into the back line here. Maple will join him over as well, but LGD doing a good job of keeping them at arm's length here. Maple trying to get out Tempered Fate. It's going to keep them away here. And LNG, you know, they're going to be happy with that. Dropping a Herald in mid now.
And we came into this, we came out from draft saying, hey, LGD have the perfect draft to deal with what LNG's comp does. They can definitely outrange it, they can definitely outpoke it. You shouldn't be getting any value out from this Janna or the Jace. But, I mean, we're at 18 minutes. We're at 18 minutes, 3K gold lead. We're at soul point at 18 minutes, and LNG completely control this game.
This is a much faster pace from LNG than I was necessarily expecting here. 4 minutes until that next Drake. If they could get themselves a Mountain Soul, they're looking fine and dandy in this game one. Maybe in the series, because LGD struggling as of right now. And Peanut, I don't know, I feel like he was looking for the all-in that maybe his team probably shouldn't be looking
The thing that I'm confused about is he was posturing like he at least wanted to try and steal the Drake, but then he backed off when it got low, and it's like, okay, if you are going to just posture for the fight like you're talking about, I don't know why you don't, you know, take that a bit slower. Longshing was still pretty far away. You know, like concede the dragon, wrap around with the Renekton, and try to get that nice position.
Try and find the fight after the fact.
Yeah, but it's like they were trying to do both. Like they were setting Peanut up in a position where he could potentially steal or then potentially start the fight if his team is there.
I have to wonder as well. We saw Peanut drop the little top hat emote. Hang on. I mean, let's take another look.
So, okay, so he's zoned out by Maple. So actually, it makes sense. He was going for the steal, wasn't trying to posture for the fight. Maple coming out with a really good taunt, and he just gets bursted out. And I mean, LNG just able to pick up an easy kill off that.
Also, huge value in that fight from Iwandi's Janna pick as well, because the fully charged Tornado, it knocks you up for so long. You could see Peanut just flying through the air, nothing he could do. He never even got to use his Haymaker to try and stay alive.
Yeah, you know, great pick coming out from Iwandi. And again, Iwandi is a Janna main. this is a pick that Iwandi should excel at. So really fun to see him pick it up. And earlier on, Munchables, you talked about the 2-item spike coming out from the Aphelios, you know, with the lethal tempo really working well with that Runon's Hurricane. So we are at that point. We also have Ardent Sensor coming out from Iwandi. So Light really going to be hitting like a truck. And even Maple going for Zanya's second.
Peanut's been caught again here, having to flash out of the play.
This might be the worst game we've seen from Peanut all year long.
I was just thinking the exact same thing. Peanut is not having a good time. We saw the emote off the back of that last play. Looked a, I mean, I'm not going to lie, tipping the hat when you're the one that got picked out maybe feels a little bit tilty.
And we even look at player cams, just obviously very quiet, very stone-faced, I guess I would say, which I don't know what other face you'd be making in this position where you are, you know, the enemy team's on soul point, you are gold down. You have this massive Aphelios that's being buffed up by this Janna. Even the Galio's going to be hitting like a truck at this point.
I mean, Flandre is certainly hitting like a truck. With these accelerated shock blasts, he is annihilating health bars. And like Jace is a great pick when it comes to setting up for these dragon fights where LGD want to stay at a distance. Like, if it's drawn out a long time, you see Peanut trying to force a fight, XX just gets away. If it's drawn out for a long time, Flandre can get so much damage out with those shock blasts.
Yep, and we're still not at a point where, you know, like let's think about when Kramer picks up his Death Stance once Longxing gets more items where the Jace still does damage at this point, right? So you're going to feel good pretty much hitting a Shock Blast on any member of LGD. So it is great that LNG got to this point so early on, so they are getting so much value out of this Jace.
Oh, Flandre maybe stepped too far forward, but Xie can't get in range. Tempered Fate. In comes Maple to defend his top laner, though. And LGD, they used a lot of ultimates to try and make that happen.
Ooh, and LNG are actually coming in. We see Volibear and Aphelios even wrapping around, but looks like the last second they decide it's not worth it.
It was a good little stun from Mark there as well to stop Maple closing the gap. And I think that was the point at which they go, all right, we can't make this play. 40 seconds, though, until this Drake.
Yeah, and we're missing a few key ultimates. We're missing, obviously, Tempered Fate and the Showstopper for Peanut, but no Volibear ultimate or Galio ultimate on the side of LNG.
So now the question is, have LGD got enough in tank at this point to contest this Drake? Because if they lose Mountain Soul, suddenly the win condition they have of team fighting later on in the game becomes very difficult to execute. Like, do they have enough items right now to be able to team fight this?
I don't think so. I think at this point, LNG can just win any straight-up 5v5. And it's like, sure, you can try and poke them out from a distance, as we talked about earlier on, but at the same time, then LNG just ignores you and just takes, you know, Mountain Soul.
And I feel like Jace as well is just going to outpoke you at this point of the game.
Well,
oh, that is unfortunate. That is real unfortunate. But he was buying time. Maybe Peanut can just grab this Drake before they arrive. In they go. It's actually Kramer that got the Drake in the end. Peanut sprints out. It's Flandre now on the chase. LGD, they've got away with this one by the seat of their pants. Now they want to fight as well. Light going to be caught up by the Tempered Fate. In goes XX just to stop the follow-up. Taunt goes across the team. Peanut that wants to be targeted as Mark goes down here. And LNG, they're using their gold lead here. But XX did go down. Flandre, the next target, as Kramer tries to close the gap. Can't quite predict it. True Shot Barrage misses. And now Maple coming in over the wall as well. Lungxing trying to get onto Flandre at all costs here as Xie finally grabs that kill. This is a messy fight, and now LNG are looking to clear things up. Taunt, everything going through onto Lungxing, and Maple gets yet another kill.
I mean, okay, and they're going to force out the TP from Xie, but still, I mean, just by, okay.
What? I don't know. What? Kramer, why are you there?
Look. Obviously, we cast the LPL. There's a lot of confusing games.
True.
There's a lot of confusing situations.
That's true.
But this is actually probably the most confusing game I've watched all split.
Lyric, do you know what's really important out of all of this? It's
What?
not that LGD lost the fight. It's not that LNG are massively ahead and snowballing out of control. It's that LGD got the draft.
No, I agree. I think that is the most important part as well. I mean, if they've gotten that soul that is so massive, we see Maple have a good taunt. We see XX going in, but guess what? Kramer has been farming up this whole game, as we saw with all the items he's already picked up at this point. Still does a ton of damage. Flandre now in a very awkward position. Sad that Kramer's ultimate doesn't hit, but good flash out by Longxing. We're going to see LNG go up while Flandre goes down on the opposite side.
Kramer is now completely and utterly safe.
Yes.
There's no way for him to die.
Yes, exactly. So let's see what happens here. Okay, well, there's the tornado you talked about, and okay, just sets up for a massive EW. So the tornado actually is what sets up the kill.
And Iwandi gets the kill in the end as well. Well deserved from Iwandi. And that knockup, even though he did, so you couldn't see the knockup, you just see the stun because the arcane shift out during the animation, but I believe it's like 2 seconds, maybe even 2.5? That sounds too long, but I'm not sure. It's a long old knockup, let me tell you. Peanut, he's going to feel the wrath of that. The haymaker comes out, but you're not tanky, dude.
He's 0-5-1. We've seen this happen 5 times.
What is...
I mean, this should be a free bear.
This is Peanut.
Yes.
Peanut doesn't do this.
Peanut was a top 3 jungler in spring.
Peanut has been an exceptional jungler in summer.
Yeah.
This is totally out of character.
Now, let's see. We have Maple on the flank. He definitely wants to... In my opinion, Maple just wants to get that time to sway them and make sure that XX can get the smite onto Baron.
LNG are taking a lot of damage from this Baron right now. If Kramer can continue to get some poke off here. Tempered Fate goes across the team here. As they try and make it in. Nice stun across everyone. True Shot Barrage in. And it's Light that gets it somehow. No smites landing. Maple goes into the rest of the team. Nice little stopwatch though, and it means Xie is the one to go down instead of Maple. Monsoon to keep everyone healthy now as Mark tries to get away. Showstopper into the team as Peanut is just running it down before my eyes. Kramer now rooted up. Sky Split comes in. The knockup is not going to land, and Kramer gets out with an arcane shift here, trying to get Flandre, but the Proto Belt finishes him in the end. What is going on with LGD today?
What is going on with Peanut this game? I mean, he's pretty much single-handedly lost this game for LGD.
And, like, just to reiterate, this is not a nothing game. This game matters for LGD. This series is what could net them 4th seed. If they lose this series, they can go all the way down to 8th place.
Yeah, and again, like that's so important, especially with a lot of the teams you're going up with. I think recent form is massively important, right? You would definitely love to, you know, potentially face a team like WE or FPX rather than maybe a Suning or a V5.
Yeah. I'm not really sure what to take away from this one, but Peanut wants to take away a kill onto Maple as of right now. It's him and Mark, they don't have damage. They're struggling to get through even just one chunk of his health bar, and now suddenly the play is turned around. Maple's here getting the CC down. Xie, stopwatch to the last second, but it ain't going to save you. 2 more kills going the way of LNG as XX wants more as well. Kramer is going to be the next target. Stunned up. Flandre in the backside as well. This is just a slaughter from LNG.
LNG win. LNG are winning a game against LGD in 28 minutes.
This is completely against all of my expectations of this series. First off, it's quick, aggressive gameplay from LNG, which I didn't expect. And second off, it is a dominant victory in game number 1 in favor of LNG. And LGD, this is not the playoff form that we want and need from them going into that top 8. Lunching will go down. I mean, LNG, they're doing a victory lap right now. They don't get to do this often.
No, they don't, but I mean, nice to see out of LNG now on a 3-game win streak. Again, they did just 2-0 Rogue Warriors, but I mean, massive question marks.